everyone, and welcome back to Let That Sink In. My name is Tiffany Smith, Director of Marketing here at PM and Associates. I am joined by my co-host, Todd Morgan, out of St. Louis. How you doing, Todd?
Doing wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are joined by a very special guest today. It is a very special Let That Sink In. We are joined by our president and CEO, Michael Henderson. How you doing,
Awesome.
Michael?
Hello. It only took 20 episodes to get that special guest, by the way. So
Our
I appreciate
21st episode.
I think this is awesome. I love it. I love having you as a guest, Michael. So welcome to Let That Sink In.
We are so excited. Michael, why don't you share a little bit about yourself? Could you give us a bio?
Yeah. So I am originally from Kentucky, the eastern part of Kentucky. I grew up in a small town called Mount Sterling, Kentucky, and graduated high school there in '92. Went to Eastern Kentucky University, was a pre-med student until I took organic chemistry.
You were a pre-med student.
Wow.
What? That is, I didn't even know that about you.
I'm already
That's
learning
amazing.
something about
I
you.
know.
Yeah.
We are 30 seconds into the episode, and I learned something new about our boss. That's incredible. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I was a pre-med student until I took organic chemistry, and that's kind of the weed out class.
Sure.
Okay.
But I had a 4-year academic scholarship, so I had to finish in 4 years, and so I transferred to environmental sciences. And graduated with a degree in environmental sciences from Eastern Kentucky University. Then I went to work for my fraternity for a couple of years, traveling the country, visiting college campuses, which was very interesting. I'd never really been out of the state of Kentucky or done any travel. And so to just hit the road and basically drive across country was a pretty rewarding experience. Met a lot of great people, saw a lot of great things, did that for 2 years. And when I came back, I needed a job. So I had a fraternity brother that was in the plumbing industry and recommended a wholesale manufacturer based out of Ohio, a company called Mutual Manufacturing and Supply. They were a very big wholesaler at the time. So I applied with them. I was going to go to work just basically as a counter sales guy, kind of work through the management program. This fraternity brother of mine actually worked for a rep agency and said, "Hey, why don't you meet my boss for lunch?" And I did. And they offered me a job, and so I went the rep route instead of the wholesale route. But I basically got my start in the rep business in 1998, and I've been in it ever since. So
that's cool.
So that's kind of a little short. That's kind of the short start, if you will.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool history.
How many people I have talked to that said this was going to be a temporary start to their life, right? I'm getting out of college. I'm in this transitional period, and then I got a job in the plumbing industry.
Yeah.
And
I believe me, I felt the same way. And it's such a great industry. And actually, there was a time I worked in it for a while, and then I kind of thought, I want to do something different. And as I'd mentioned, I kind of started as a pre-med major, so I thought, I wanted to get into pharmaceutical sales. So I interviewed with Eli Lilly and actually made it all the way down to the final 2. It was a series of interviews, like 4 or 5 different interviews. And so I made it down to the final 2, and I didn't get the job, and I was crushed. I was like, oh my gosh, So I asked for an exit interview with the hiring director, and he said, I did you a favor. I was like, you did me a favor? You didn't give me the job. How's that a favor? And he said, look, he goes, you're in a business that values people, values relationships, values long-term customers. He said, that's not really what we do here. He said, in this side of the business, you basically wait 90 minutes to meet with a doctor who might forget your name 30 seconds after you leave the door. And he said, you'd have been frustrated and quit. And he said, stay where you are. You're in a great spot. And he was right. And I'm thankful for that one life lesson. That's been a good one.
That's
Absolutely.
Cool. And he was correct too.
I think he was right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it worked out okay.
Yeah.
If you enjoy an industry with relationships, boy, we are in one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Well, there is a certain reason that you are on the podcast this month, Michael. There is a very special reason, and it is because we are celebrating our 50th anniversary here at PM and Associates.
That's huge.
Yes, it is absolutely so cool. Huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
So congratulations, Michael. That should be first and foremost. Congratulations on 50 years in business as PM and Associates, man. That's exciting.
It really is amazing, to be honest with you. And it's funny because I was trying to do some research just, on the percentage of small businesses that make it to 50 years. And it's hard. The number's so small, you can't really find a definitive number.
Sure.
And I think especially to do it in an industry where we're on 30-day contracts.
Yeah.
Right.
Is even more amazing, you know.
Right.
And I think, I'm not 100% sure on this. I mean, trying to do some research on this also, but I think we are the oldest existing manufacturer representative in the state of Indiana.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
So
is very
I
neat.
believe
That's
that to be
even
the
more
case.
special.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So it is
Well,
great.
it
Yeah.
truly is a milestone. I mean, 50 years is absolutely a milestone. And to come this far, obviously there were some folks before you that, because you're too young, Michael, to have started the company.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So kind of take us back a little bit. Who were the founders of PM and Associates? How did this great company that Tiffany and I have, been working for several years now, how did it come to be?
It's a great story, to be honest with you. And I think it's interesting when you look at the history of manufacturers reps. The model itself has really been around since the 30s. But it really picked up steam after World War II, and as U.S. manufacturing really was in full steam, and the housing boom was going on, and so forth. Manufacturers needed a sales force, and so the rep model really took off at that point. And a lot of companies were hiring manufacturers representatives, and most of those manufacturers reps were simple 1-2 man operations, guys selling product out of the back of their cars. And PM and Associates was no different. The P in PM stands for Joe Pendel.
Okay.
And Joe was a local salesman here in Indiana, and he had an agency, Corcoran Pendel, that was a manufacturer's rep, among many things, Zoller Pump Company, which
Wow.
Joe began representing in 1959. So this is our 65th year being associated with Zoller Pump Company. And so, Joe it was a great story. Joe would get up in the morning and he'd drive down to Zoller and he'd pick up a load of pumps in his station wagon, and then he'd drive back selling them one at a time out of the back of his car. And so Joe had a really nice little company. He had a couple other lines as well. And then the M in PM was a guy by the name of Fred Munns. So Fred had been a wholesale salesman and had been doing some wholesale sales, and Zurn Industries at that time needed a representative in the market, and they actually put Fred in business. And so Fred started a rep agency, and Zurn was one of his primary lines. He also represented Weiss Instruments, which he began representing in 1969. That was the year Fred started his company, 1969.
Okay.
And we still represent Weiss to this day. So this is our 55th year representing Weiss Instruments.
That's
and
awesome.
So then in 1974, another company, Simmons Industries out of Braintree, Massachusetts, was looking for a manufacturer's rep in the Indiana market. And the regional sales manager at the time interviewed both Joe and Fred and loved them both. And back in those days, a lot of times you didn't go to a restaurant for dinner. You hosted the manufacturer at your house. So Joe had the manufacturer over to his house, and they were having dinner. And the guy from Simmons said, "Joe, I really like you, and I really like Fred. If you guys were to get together, this would be a no-brainer." And so Joe picked up the phone, called Fred Munns, invited him to his house, and the three of them scratched out PM and Associates on a napkin at the dinner table. And that was 19. That was a great story. That was 1974, and Lou Scheimer had worked for the previous Simmons rep.
Okay.
And so they brought Lou on board as a minority partner. And so even though his name's not on the door per se, Lou was an integral part to the formation of PM and Associates. And so the three of them started the company in 1974 in a little shack, really, that was behind a Marsh grocery store. We still got a picture of it.
This picture is on LinkedIn right now, and it is a little shack. Yes,
it is a little shack
from very humble beginnings, and that is the truth. Yes,
that's correct. And so up until so they kept some of those lines, and like I said, we still represent Weiss Instruments and Zoller Pump Company today, and that was the start.
That's incredible. When I hear that history with Weiss and with Zurn, I mean with Zoller, these are on 30-day contracts. I mean, if you add that up, that's just unbelievable, though, that you've had that long of a relationship, with these manufacturers. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by that whole concept in itself, right? 30-day concept and lasting 60 plus years representing a manufacturer. But also the other thing, when I hear the stories like that, how grateful are we to those founders
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, listen, I would tell you to know that, um, we're able to do what we do today. I mean, now we sell Zoller pumps by the truckload,
Mm-hmm.
and to think of the guys that basically got out and pedaled them one at a time out of the back of their car. And, there's a great story. I know we're going to talk later on about Steve Hullett and Rick Meyer, who came after Joe and Fred. But, Rick's dad, Bud Meyer, started a company in 1958, GE Meyer and Associates, and they lived in Columbia, Indiana. Yeah, up in kind of
Right.
the northeast portion. And Bud would leave on Sunday after church and drive to Evansville and basically work his way back the whole week,
Amazing.
because there were no interstates really back then,
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so what the founders did to lay the groundwork for what we can do today, I mean, we're obviously grateful is a small word for that,
Oh,
really.
because the amount of sacrifice that they did. I mean, look at the time away from their families, where today, thank goodness, we've got this wonderful technology that allows us to touch people from states away without leaving our homes. These guys didn't have any of that. And
Yeah,
like I
I
said, the
don't think they could.
sacrifice was huge.
Exactly. I don't think they could imagine in their wildest dreams what we do today and how big we are and the reach that
Mm-hmm.
we have. But the values that they started with the company, with, those are still the same values we have today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share some of those values?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, when you kind of go back, and one of the fun things about a business like ours is we still have all of the meeting minutes from beginning in 1974. So you can go back and look at our original articles of incorporation, some of our original contracts we still have. So you're able to see some of those things, and it's been fun to kind of look back
I'll
on
bet.
some of the history, yeah, and kind of what they started the company with. And really, even though we've kind of maybe changed a little bit of the wording to reflect more modern times, the values have always been the same. Solve for the customer has always been number one. The customer is our most important piece. Teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
seeing how Joe and Fred and Lou really bonded together. There we talk about commitment, being committed to each other, being committed to our customers, being committed to our communities. They definitely did a lot of that early on. Accountable execution, right? We got to go
Mm-hmm.
out and do the work every day. And it's funny because
Sure.
I had Jason Coldiron, who's a new associate with us and our current VP of operations, said that one of the things he loved about PM and Associates was it's in our DNA to just do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
To just do the work. When I think about accountable execution, I think about just go do the work, and then
Yep.
finally lead through change. And again, I think that's one of the things that I love most about PM and Associates is that we're not afraid to disrupt the model and kind of carve our
Right.
own path.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
Jason's in town. We were having that conversation earlier, as a matter of fact, about disrupting the market and how your comfort zone is killing you is one of my favorite terms. And I've shared
Yeah.
that with you before, Michael. And I think you and I have a similar philosophy in that regard, right? If you get too comfortable, then you're going to start getting passed by.
That's
So
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
got to
Absolutely.
get out
So
of that comfort zone.
those values still guide us today. Sometimes the names on the line card change for one
Mm-hmm.
reason or another. I mean, I do feel blessed that that we've been with Zoller Pump Company for 65 years and we've been with Weiss Instruments for 55 years, and we've expanded with those companies over
Mm-hmm.
time. So feel really blessed there. And even though some of the lines have changed, the core values don't. So
Absolutely. Well, I
yeah.
wanted to touch a little bit more on a couple of our other past owners. I know you mentioned Rick Meyer and Steve Hullett, because we would really be remiss to not mention them because they have been a huge part, again, of this great company. So can you talk a little bit more about the timeline of when they came into the company and the huge legacy that they left with PM and Associates, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll start by saying you're talking about two people who are great mentors and very
Yeah.
close friends, and I owe a huge debt of gratitude to the both of them for trusting me with their legacy, right, as they
Mm-hmm.
kind of came in. But Steve told a great story on the 50th anniversary video, which is also on our social platforms
Yes.
right now. But he joined PM and Associates in 1978 and worked his way up. Kind of started in the warehouse and worked his way up through to outside sales and became a real leader in the company. And anybody that's been around Steve just knows his charisma and he's just a guy that you want to be around, right? And a guy that you want to do business with. And so as Steve tells a great story. They were at a sales meeting one time, and one of the manufacturers was talking about some data that they wanted the reps to start providing. And they come back, and Joe's like, "Oh man, I don't know how we're going to get all this data," and blah, blah, blah. And Steve's like, "Hey, it's no problem. We'll just put in an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll do this and that and pivot tables and so forth." And he said Joe just gave him this kind of blank stare and said, "You know what, Steve, I think I'll retire." And so I think it was like, yeah, I'm good. So I think it was like late 97, 98 or so that
Oh, that's great.
I know, isn't that great? Yeah.
Yes.
I think somewhere around like late 97, early 1998, Steve Hollett bought the company from Joe and Fred. And then Rick Meyer's dad, as I had mentioned earlier, owned an agency here in town, GE Meyer and Associates. And it's funny, we could really do a whole podcast just on GE Meyer and kind of the rep tree that sprouted from that.
Yeah.
It's really a fascinating story for another time. But
Yeah.
Rick really started working for his dad really when he was like 8. And so they would kind of go and do inventory together, and sometimes he'd go on the road with his dad during the summer and so forth. But I think Rick officially went to work for GE Meyer and Associates in 1977. And then he bought the company several years later. And then, as Rick told the story in the 50th anniversary video, he was doing a panel for AMAR on succession and asked Steve to be a part of that panel. And as they were kind of going through the succession, they realized that neither of them really had a great succession plan. And although they were both still young men at the time, they realized that, hey, the legacy of the business is probably the most important thing. And they were better together than they were separate. So they decided to merge the company in 1999, keep the name PM and Associates. And they were partners up until I acquired the company in 2017. Both of them tremendous leaders, both locally and nationally, with our principals, with our people. Really just unbelievably fine gentlemen that I had the privilege to be around.
That's awesome. So yeah,
That's
you've been
fantastic.
fortunate to just, like you said, just one group to the next group, and now you're the next generation of ownership of PM and Associates. So 2017 is when you became an owner at PM and Associates. Had you been working there for a while prior to ownership?
Yeah, that's a great question, Todd. So I had been in the rep business for a little bit. I did leave and went to work for Ferguson for a few years, and which was great, a great experience for me, an opportunity to kind of really learn a different side of the business and so forth. But I was dying to come back to the rep business. And so in 2009, I had the opportunity to come work for PM and Associates. And I joined the team then, and I was still living in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. I had recently married my beautiful wife, Jill, and we had just had 2 kids, our son Cameron and daughter Mia. And so life was great at the time. And I was really kind of covering Southern Indiana for PM and Associates. But one thing that I loved about Rick and Steve was just the fact that they knew that just being a salesman wasn't really what I wanted to do long term. We had a very long conversation about what it means to be an owner of an agency. And so kind of started the thought process there. In 2012, moved the family up to Indianapolis, and in order to kind of be in the home market, spend more time with Rick and Steve, and also work with some of our bigger customers. In 2015, they said, "Hey, okay, let's kind of start the process." And so I had been with the company basically for about 6 years when we kind of started the process. And as you know, when you're on 30-day contracts, and we talked earlier, it's all about relationships. It takes a while to kind of get everybody acclimated to the fact that, hey, this is going to be the new owner.
Sure.
And so it took 2 years for us to kind of really go through that process.
Transition.
To do the transition. Yeah. And then I bought the company in 2017.
Did you come in 2009 knowing that that was the plan?
With a great idea. Yeah. We had an open conversation before I joined PM and Associates about what my long-term career goals were. And to Steve and Rick's credit, they said, "Hey, look, that's a great goal. And we will certainly try to help you reach that goal. But right now, you don't know us and we don't know you, right? So,
let's work towards it.
Yeah, let's work towards it. Let's see what can happen here. And I think it's interesting in the rep business. Really, there's really only one measurable, and that's the sales numbers, right? So it's kind of can you perform here? Can you work with others? Can you exemplify our core values and those things that are important to us? And luckily they saw that in
And
me.
obviously that was very successful. So yes,
That worked. Yeah, that worked.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So,
yeah. So going back to 50 years again, I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. But over those 50 years, so you've been there since 2009. What are you most proud of for PM and Associates? What accomplishment of PM and Associates are you most proud of?
you know, that too is a great question. It's interesting because you could point to a number of things, right? And I know that we're going to maybe talk about kind of our expansion and some things that we've done, but I will tell you the thing that I've been most proud of is the fact that we have 40 associates now that are part of this company.
Yeah.
And you know, and as part of that, some of the lives that we've been able to change, you know, whether it's people that have bought their first house, or they bought their first brand new car, or they went on a great vacation, or they're putting their kids through college, or hey, I funded my grandkids 529 plan. That's really been the best part. And I think that as we've grown over the years to see the passion that people have for what we're trying to do, it's easy to say, hey, we sell toilets, right? And yeah, we do, but that's really just the means to the end. I mean, the real reason that we're in business is to provide personal and professional opportunities for people around us. And it's funny because I've said this before, and I know you guys have heard it, that, you know, what I think is great is that if we hit our Zoller quota, for instance, in a year, then perhaps somebody on the Zoller assembly line gets a bonus that year.
Right.
And then maybe that person puts somebody through college, and that person, you know, cures a major disease, you know, or contributes to society, or somebody tithes to their church, and that helps a homeless person who goes on to do great things. I mean, when you think about that kind of pay it forward piece of that, we sell plumbing, that's what we do, but that really just gives us the opportunity to do what we really want to do, which is improve people's lives, both personally and professionally.
And you reiterate that message pretty often, and I appreciate it. I think it's cool. It's a good reminder of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know that PM is going to be around for another 50 years and beyond, but what's next for PM in the near future, Michael? What do you see for the company in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the rep model has been just an ever-changing thing, and it's been amazing to see the consolidation within our industry and how reps are changing. And, you know, we've gone from, you know, selling pumps one at a time out of the back of the car to multi-million-dollar corporations spanning multiple states and, you know, employing, you know, 50, 100, 150 people. And so, you know, we've had some great expansion on our own. You know, in 2019, we acquired Mission Specialty in St. Louis, and in 2022, we acquired CK Dorman in Kansas City, and both of those have been integral to our overall success. So, you know, that particular mission of continuing to grow and expand and disrupt the model will be our leading piece for the next 10 years. One of the things I would tell you that as you know, the role of the rep continues to change, and we continue to take a more instrumental piece within the supply chain, you can see us as an agency continuing to look for different ways to add value to both our customers and our principals. And I think that, you know, the one thing I love about PM is that we've never been afraid to try something. And, you know, I could give you 15 things that we succeeded at. I could give you 15 things that didn't work. And but what I love is that our team just rallies around it every time. When I throw something against the wall and say, hey, let's go try this, everybody's like, yeah, let's try it and see what happens. So if you ask me what the next 10 years are going to hold, what I would say is that we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to challenge the industry, not just the rep model, but the industry overall. We're going to continue to challenge some of the norms, some of the things that people look at and say, that's not really your role. Well, it might be our role.
Right.
We've started a new division now, PM Hydronics, which is launching, and we've got other divisions kind of on the wings that we expect to do. We've got great principals we represent that continue to expand their business into new ventures. Acorn getting into the stainless steel commercial sink market obviously is a big deal for us. So a lot of positive things happening. So really the sky's the limit over the next 10 years, and I can't wait to see what it does.
That's awesome. Love the optimism. So I'm curious, what have you got planned for a 50th year in business for PM and Associates? What's going to happen in 2024 to highlight and celebrate 50 years?
I wanted to tell you I'd like to take 50 days off, but that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. We got to get to 51. Don't do that.
I know. I might take 50 minutes off.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. We're going to welcome all of our associates and their spouses and significant others to Indianapolis for a weekend to celebrate. Tiffany, as you know, you've been instrumental in the planning of this event. We're really excited to think we're going to have almost 100 people in town at the new historic Bottle Works Hotel downtown for a black tie gala. And so very, very excited about that. That'll just be a great weekend for all of us, just as teammates, to really kind of celebrate and let our hair down and have a good time. And then throughout the summer, we'll have a couple of events that we'll invite customers and manufacturers to at all 3 offices. Cool. So they'll be on the lookout for that. A little bit smaller in scale per se, but than the event we're doing for our associates, but certainly a great time to celebrate this milestone. And
I would say watch the socials as well, because we're certainly going to share this celebration as we progress through 2024 and celebrate it with all of you as well. So I'm super excited about the black tie event, Michael. I can't wait to get everybody together. I think it's going to be just a really special weekend.
It will be. It will be a lot of fun. Indianapolis is a great host city.
It is.
And the Bottle Works facility is just fantastic. We did a lot of work down there on that project, so it's kind of cool to show it off that we were down there. But yeah, we're really excited about it. And I would tell you, I think, again, when you look around, 50 years doesn't happen because of 1 or 2 people. It's been everybody that's had an opportunity to contribute, whether it's associates or customers or principals or whatever it happens to be. And like I said, we're really blessed to represent some of the best manufacturers in the industry, and excited for the next 50 years for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I'm certainly proud to be a part of this too. Very much so. And to hear the 50-year history, I learned a lot today on this podcast, which is fun. And usually as the hosts, we're talking about the information we know. And this was a little different, getting to hear information for the first time about your company. It was really cool. It was really neat.
Well, I, for one, am very glad that you did not get the job at Eli Lilly, Michael. So I am very happy that you are our boss. And I could not be happier that we are celebrating 50 years here at PM and Associates. So is there anything else that you'd like to add, Michael, before we wrap it up?
Well, first off, I want to thank both of you guys. It's amazing to see the success that Let That Sink In podcast has had. And again, just what kind of started off as, hey, let's try this and see what happens, has really blossomed into an industry favorite. And I tell you, the best form of flattery is imitation, because there's a lot of industry podcasts out there now, but we were one of the early ones, and
that's awesome.
You guys certainly paved the way. Yeah. So big thank you for that. And just again, a thank you to to our founders, to the people that came after them, the associates and principals that have been with us. You don't get to 50 years on your own, and it's just a really special milestone for us to celebrate. And I'm grateful to be here and tell that story.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, Michael. And let's not wait another 20 episodes before you come back on. How about that?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks
for being a guest today, Michael. So look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You too, Todd. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.